Hello, everyone. My name is Marcel Deonville-Lissade. I am a dentist for children, and I'm also one of the founding members of Creole and Beyond. Thank you all for joining us for Haitian Creole Children's Book Week, Semaine Livre pour Timoun en Creole. Welcome. Creole and Beyond is a collaboration of authors, educators, community leaders whose mission is to foster an environment where Haitian children books are easier to find, more accessible, and celebrated within our communities. Today marks our second webinar of the week. Tonight, we'll be discussing the topic, how to get your book published. We also encourage you to join us again for our upcoming webinar on Friday. In addition, we invite you to explore our online bingo resources, interactive activities to enjoy with your children, and our daily spotlights featuring experts in the field. If you have not already done so, please sign up for our newsletter and follow us on social media to stay connected and informed about upcoming events and resources. Tonight, we are honored to have an outstanding panel of authors who will share valuable insight into their personal publishing journeys and experiences. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. At this time, I'm pleased to pass the program over to my colleague, Régine Théodat, who will be moderating tonight's panel. Régine is the co-owner of East and Law and also one of the founding members of Creole and Beyond. East and Law create books, toys, and educational play tools that help children of Haitian and Caribbean descent proudly connect and celebrate with their culture. It is truly my pleasure to hand the mic over to our host for tonight, Régine Théodat.
Merci, Marcel. Bienvenue tout le monde. Welcome. I am super excited. This is one of my favorite topics, and I'm really excited because we have such an amazing panel. And I know everybody here is really hopeful for a lot of useful information. Et sinon, ça, c'est aussi des gens qui plus parler créole ou bien plus parler anglais, ou à faire me connaître. Et parce que je ne sais pas faire tous les deux langues à la fois. Et puis, si nous avons des questions, dans le chat là-dessus, nous pouvons avec quelques traductions. And as Marcel said, my name is Régine Théodat, and I am also an author, but I'm not here in my capacity as an author. I'm here in my capacity to learn from all these other authors and creators. And one of the ways, as we were thinking through how to organize this webinar, because this is a really challenging and really dense industry to navigate, like already in the chat, people are saying, I want to write a book, but I have no idea how to get started. We're going to do a presentation to start, and that will take us about 30 minutes. That will be between me presenting and also having the panelists share their personal stories that will help us connect the dots in how the industry is structured. And then we'll open it up to questions. We'll be able to get to your specific questions that have to do with your book. And we'll also learn more about the books that the panelists have put together. And with that being said, I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I'm also going to apologize in advance if you hear a lot of noise. I have kids running in the background who I'm tired of telling to not make so much noise. So I apologize in advance if you hear or see little ones appear at any moment. Okay, so let me try to share my screen now. And if something happens in the chat, Marcel, will you help me by telling me? Because once I share my screen, I can't see all of your lovely faces.
Okay, yeah, I'll manage it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, so understanding the publishing industry, qui j'en livre fait vraiment. And so this presentation has been both in English and Creole. And so if I go in between a different language, just read the opposite language that you do understand on the slide. But before I get started, I do want to make a little plug for Creole and Beyond. We have been working very diligently for the last several months on putting together this platform. And two really cool things that are about our platform. One, you can find books, and so it's a repository. So authors go on and they add their children's books. As long as they are Haitian related, they can go on the site. That means a Haitian main character, or if it's nonfiction, it has to obviously be about Haiti or Haitian history or Haitians of some sort. And so you can go find books there, but you can also add your books. And also, I noticed in the chat, people were asking things about syntax and orthograph and like how to write Creole. We have a lot of resources on our website about the alphabet the orthograph as it stands now, some grammatical rules, but also on our site, people are able to add their services. So editors can add their services, illustrators, authors. And so it really is a place that we're trying to get to be organized, to be able to encourage the creation of books for children that center Haiti. And so I just wanted to make that little plug before I get started on the actual presentation. But now we're really going to get down into business. And so when we say publishing, I want to be clear, there's like these two kind of categories that exist in publishing. There is the traditional route, where most books that you'll see in a library or a bookstore have gone the traditional route. That means they went to a publishing house, and the publishing house has then done the distribution and done all the marketing, and then they end up in our libraries, in our homes, etc. That is the traditional book publishing route. There is another growing route where people are able to publish their own books by bypassing a lot of these other mechanisms. Traditional route has traditionally been quite gatekept, especially in the process. And so usually an author has to get a literary agent, and that it's a process that can take multiple years, and they have to go to a publisher. Now, some publishers, especially the smaller ones, like when Jonas will talk in a few minutes, they will accept authors submitting their manuscripts directly, and they will then publish them without them having an agent. And an agent is just somebody who represents you legally as you go through your process for publishing your books. On the secondary side, there is everything else. There's self-publishing, there's independent publishing, there is hybrid publishing. And so we're going to talk about all of those things. And that is basically up here where the author goes directly to the market. And so again, to just make this a little bit clearer, there are four main publishing routes that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the traditional publishing today. We're going to talk about independent/self-publishing. We're going to talk about hybrid, that does something that looks a little bit like in between traditional and in between independent, where you outsource some of the things that a traditional publisher would manage. And then there's also print on demand, that is fairly recent, but has given a very wide range of abilities to be able to produce your own books. And as of right now, the independent market of self-published books is getting really, really large. It's actually almost 30% of the market. And so it's a growing trend of people being able to bypass a traditional publisher, like think Harper's Collins or Penguin House, if you look at the backs of your kids' books, source books, and being able to print and publish their own books, which is really exciting for people like us who maybe want to create our books in a way that's a little bit faster and have more creative control. Okay, and so when we talk about publishing, I want us to think of it as these three main ecosystems. There is a first part of the ecosystem, which is like what happens before your book actually gets published/printed/distributed. So that's the writing, that's the illustration, that's the editing process. The secondary process is when it actually goes to the publisher and it gets printed or distributed. If you're doing the publishing, it goes through that process. And the third is like after all that is said and done, you still have got to get your book sold. And so this is a place where a lot of authors get stuck, is that you've managed to do the first two, but now you actually need to get your book sold to cover the cost if you self-publish, or get your book sold if you're traditionally published. You want to be able to get another book deal. And so you want to be successful on this end as well. I'm sorry if you can hear the motos behind me. I can't do anything about the motorcycles. And so we are going to talk to these four creators today who have each done their own kind of route into or journey into publishing. And they're all going to share their beautiful ways in which they have carved out a space for them in this industry. And then we're going to talk about with these two collaborators, that one who works more on the side of consulting and helping you navigate it yourself, and then one who illustrates and helps you produce the book that you are hoping to have the kinds of illustrations that go with. So, just to recap, the global publishing industry is huge. It's a $130 billion industry. It's 29 billion in the US alone, and children books are one of the strongest selling categories, especially because children read books so quickly, and also because children consume these books so often. However, I want to express as an author, I really am somebody who has experienced this is not the kind of industry for you to get into if you are looking to be a multimillionaire, because you really do have to have another why. Sure, you can make money as an author or as a creator, but more often than not, people that are in this industry are in it because they have a really story that they're very passionate about and they want it to reach somebody. And that has to be your why, because if you do end up being that person that makes a lot of money, it is going to take quite a bit of time. Okay, so now let's talk about traditional publishing, and I'm going to introduce Jonas in 1 minute. And so to recap, a traditional publisher is I am Régine. Say, for example, I'm Régine and I'm an author and I want to get traditionally published. I don't want to deal with having to market my own book. I don't want to have to deal with having to print my own book. I don't want to figure out who's going to be the editor of my own book. I don't want to navigate any of that. I just want to create really meaningful books. And so I will write a manuscript and I will go find a way to get a traditional publishing house to take it on. I can either get an agent or I can either submit directly to maybe a smaller publisher that accepts people who are not agented, which is another way of just saying legally represented. And in that instance, you might get an advance. So you might give you a little bit of money before. It ranges. It could be like $2,500. Of course, there are people who get six-figure book deals. But it all really ranges, especially for a debut, so like a first-time author, the range is quite high. This also comes with a longer timeline. It can take years. I know people who have been trying to get traditionally published for 12, 15 years now. I know people who got it in 1 year or 2 years. It really is a challenging industry, and we'll hear more about that from Jonas. But it has all these major benefits because these traditional companies, traditional publishers have been around longer. They have better relationships with libraries. They have better relationships with bookstores. They dominate the distribution. You don't have to do your own marketing. And so you're able to sort of bypass all of that. And so if you get this deal, it's really great, but you also have less creative control. And so if you look down here at the stat, only about 1 to 2% of manuscripts submitted to major publishers even get acquired. And so I want to introduce Jonas now. Thank you, Jonas, so much for being with us. Jonas is one of those people that's in the 1 to 2%. And so Jonas is a psychiatrist and writer who's based in Minnesota. He's of Haitian descent. His writing explores migration, memory, and collective trauma. He writes in many different languages. He has a great Substack, like a newsletter for those of you who don't know what Substack is, that I love reading. And he recently, oh, no, probably not recently, but you have now announced your book deal and your traditional book deal that is traditionally published. That's a memoir is coming out in 1 year. Jonas, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much. So I am Jonas Attilus. I hope you guys see me
Yes,
well.
we do.
Okay. Okay, so I think Wei Jin already said so much I wanted to say. So my book is coming next year. It's full. I'm going to put the publisher. You guys already see that. It's the name is What the Ground Couldn't Shake. The publisher will be Split Lip Press, and it will be in 2027. The book is about the earthquake in Haiti. So I was in Haiti during the earthquake, and I realized there was not a lot of literature about that. And given that I survived it, I wanted to write about that. And I say that because this sentence is extremely important. You have to know why you want to publish, to go to that world, because it takes a long time. So the average will be between 2 to 4 years for the book to get published. But once it get accepted, you have a book editor. So my book right now is being edited with my editor. I have a book designer, so somebody who is kind of like looking at all that aspect of the book. And I have a marketing director, so somebody's looking at where I'm going for book two and things like that. And for sure, I'm going to places where there are a lot of Haitian, like Florida, Boston, New York, New Jersey. So now, what's the process for me? So you need to have an agent, and I don't have an agent. So what I did, I wrote my memoir, and I want you guys to know that I also take writing classes to write the memoir. So after I finish writing it, I submit it to a small press. They receive almost 150 copy, like different manuscript, and they choose only one. So just for you to have a sense of how complicated it can be, but it's not impossible, you know. And then when they select it, they give you a book contract. So I sign a book contract where they tell me this is how much you're going to make out of it from the book, and this is how much we're going to cover. Okay, I will answer that at the end. Um, but for me, to be honest, they could have given me advance, give you some press can give you $10,000, others can give you like more than that. But to be honest, I didn't write the book for the money, and I didn't take a advance. And I'm going to be honest. The reason is because you can either take an advance or you can take it after the book starts selling. And I was open to that. So you want to have a day job. You want to have a day job where you pay your bill and all that. So when you're writing, it's just kind of like something that you're passionate about and you want to do. And for me, the reason I write the book is because that part of the Haitian and our culture, the earthquake, there is not enough things written about it, and I didn't want that to die. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything you would like me to add that I didn't say. I can still talk about my book, and I can still talk about the process.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And we'll have more time to talk more about your book and your process. I was curious though, how did you end up deciding you wanted to go traditionally published?
So, so I have a mentor. So I have a group writing group here. My mentor is traditionally published, and then she told me, hey, you have to look for small press that align with the type of book that you want to publish, and this is very important. That's mean you can submit your work to a small press. They didn't choose it, not because it's not a good book, it's just because it doesn't align with the press. My book, it's not a book that said this happened, that happened. It's a book that is kind of philosophical and psychological. So when I talk about the earthquake, I try to to approach the earthquake, trying to make sense of it. I'm going to give you an example. When somebody lose the mom, they call them an orphan. But what about when a mom loses the child? We don't have a name for that. So I wanted to show when the earthquake was happening in Haiti, we didn't even have name to say what was happening with us. So I kind of like use for sure I detailed that I was sleeping on the street and all those things, but I try to bring a lot of psychological, understanding and philosophical way to approach the earthquake. And because of that, my publisher, that's what they're good at. They're like boundary breaking. They will tell you that they want you to question reality as you're writing. So because it aligned with them, so they kind of like select first from the 150 they receive, they select a batch of it. And then after that, they select another batch until they come to that one person that they will publish, you know? So before you submit, I will recommend you to read the press to see if they align with the type of work you want to submit. When I was doing that process, I had three or four that could receive my work. I submitted to the four of them. And once the first one gave me a book contract, I went to the other one and I said, and I withdraw my draft from them. So yeah, so there's a process, anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And yeah, and I can't wait to read your book. I think it has to be really good if you were able to land that book deal so fast. I'm impressed that
Yeah.
you got that so quickly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And after everybody goes, we'll have a chance to hear more about everyone's individual book. And something I did want to point out, I put it in the chat, something that people may not realize about an advance. It is just that. It's just an advance, your royalties. So that means every amount of money you get from each book sold has to earn out that pay out. And so let's say you have, I'll just use $100. It's never going to be that low. $100 as an advance, and you get $5 of royalties for each book sold. You will not get a singular cent until you sell 20 books. And then on your 21st book, you'll start to earn royalties for that book. And so it's not like, oh, I just got this bonus. It's not a bonus. It's towards your sales. All right. Thank you so much, Jonas. Okay, so we're going to keep going. And so we're going to start now talking about, remember I said there's traditional publishing and there's like everything else, literally everything else. But there's so many different ways to do the bypassing the traditional industry and going straight to the consumer directly. And so the first one, we call it, you'll sometimes hear people call it independent publishing. You'll sometimes people call it self-publishing. There is a bit of snobbery that happens in the industry where people will say they're indie published because they think that it sounds better or nicer than saying self-published, but they are essentially the same things. People who are indie published will make the distinction that they use a professional editor, they use, professional illustrators, they don't use AI, that they don't use, like they will make the distinction that they have done it the exact same way that a press would do, a small or large press would do. They just did it on their own. This, of course, costs money. And this is also how I am. I would consider myself in this category as well. I hired professionals to do all of my work all the way through, right up until distribution. And so if you see one or the other, it's the same thing. It also allows you to be able to get much higher royalties, meaning the amount of profit that you make off of each book, because of course you put all your own costs up front. Within this category of self-publishing, indie publishing, there's also a hybrid publishing. You might sometimes hear somebody call it vanity publishing. Again, it's this kind of the publishing industry has a lot of, I don't know how to say the word, zui, I don't know if there's an English equivalent for that, but there's like, people just have ways of, saying things that necessarily aren't that different. And so a hybrid publisher, and we'll talk to Jickael, is where you outsource more of those things that a publishing company would do for you. And so you're going to outsource like like most of everything, like the contracting, like you get a professional support, and sometimes you pay for it. And so instead of giving a book advance, you're giving a hybrid publishing company this money, and they are doing all of the legwork for you. So say like I'm Régine, I've rounded up $10,000. I want to do this. I don't want to deal with having to edit it and find out how to bind, get an ISB. I don't want to do all of that. I just want to hire somebody else to do it. And then that's what they would call a hybrid publishing like a publishing process. And so let's talk to the two people here that are doing that. And so we have Charlot, Lucien, and Théodat, Juste. And I'll briefly introduce the both of you, and then you can unmute. Charlot is a storyteller, author, visual artist, and longtime Haitian Creole educator. I'm so sure some of you know him, especially the ones who have joined us from Massachusetts. He recently just wrote a children's book that just came out this year, and so we'll get to hear more about that. And then we have Théodat, Juste, who's also one of the founding members of Creole and Beyond. She's a Haitian-born author, dancer, choreographer, and cultural ambassador. If you don't follow her on social media, you have to, because she has so much energy, and she does really incredible work with children that incorporate all of our heritage markers. And I'm really excited for you all to meet and talk with them more. And she is Toronto-based. So Charlot and Jadane, si nous te ka 2 minutes tête nous, et puis nous n'a commencé. Oops. Oui, on m'a commencé, ma PC, ouais, qui j'aime carré, tu n'es pas me nous. Ah. Charlot, oui, Charlot, on m'a parlé un peu de comment on te, schéma pour publier.
Good evening. A few things I quickly want to share as by way of considerations. The publishing might depend on is it about expressing your creative self? Is it about a utilitarian cause that you have to address, say that education, so that environment? Or is it that you are responding to a request from an entity or a publishing company whose values align with yours? So I so happen to function in multiple domains, So I have had my work published either by academic institutions or publishers, Pledge or Inter-American Press Review, because these were articles that needed to be published for a cause, or I had work that has been published by, this is poetry, by other publishers as well, or most recently, this children's book. Now, in any event, I don't recall a case where I had to contribute or to make some kind of payment for it, because some of these work were picked up by those publishers. Of course, to ensure that I achieved the highest level of quality, I made sure that I got my work reviewed by professional colleagues, by relatives, by perfect strangers, and in some instances by children as well. Because by listening to their feedback, by observing their reaction, I'm able to further finalize and fine-tune both my content and also my style. So I think it's important to have this kind of prep work before you let your work goes out to this next level. Now, to be more specific, I would say that as far as the publishing of poetry book, these were picked up by an entity that was already publishing an anthology, and then that got interested into my work, and they took it over. But again, I insist that it was important for me to be my first editor, although I will also insist you should never trust yourself as an editor. So by being my own editor, it's about passing it around to a few trusted friends or colleagues or family members or professionals who did the friendly or the hard work of pushing back so that I can further review what I was submitting ultimately to a publisher. Now, this publisher, in this case, went on, of course, to do their own edits before they released this book. It was, I will take the case of the children's book, which is like two of these works. One would have been an art anthology, and the other one was the children's book. Now, the children's book is the most important that I want to point out because it responded to a few needs. As a child, I experienced many places in Haiti, and I experienced both the urban and the rural areas of Haiti. I saw things that I wanted to present. And as I get in touch with educators, I saw the need to have this book that would meet certain cultural requirements. It was about sustaining, preserving, promoting the culture. It was about providing an educational tool. So in this case, you integrate the Creole and the English as part of the book. We also picked up traditional songs. It also became important components and elements for an educator to be able to work with it. So I think that these particular features attracted the attention of one of these publishing company, and they are the one who literally took it on to finalize the editing, to publish, and to ensure the marketing. So I made the case for this particular publication because there were needs that needed to be addressed, and I told my creative self to write something that was accepted by this place. So I quickly want to end by what I call the lessons learned as far as the challenges and the pluses. This is, in fact, incredibly difficult to go to the traditional route. If I submit, well, not if, in one case I made 40 submissions, and I got 4 responses. 3 were rejections, and one was, oh yeah, we'll see you later. There was some interest here. Now, I've learned to understand that rejection is not a reflection on the quality of my work. And I think that's also the case for any person who's going through the traditional work. And also, you need strong editors, and then they should be the ones who will not flatter you or tell you it's all beautiful. They should be either the friends or the family members that says that doesn't make sense. Now, it might be true that it doesn't make sense for them, but just by listening to the fact that it didn't make sense for one person might help you to revisit some of your perspectives and some of your approaches. One last thing to say is that I worked with an illustrator to make sure that I got the right product. And this was also a lesson learned to the extent that you have illustrators or people who are using the technology and who may be well intentioned, but who have no clue that if you are presenting a book for a Haitian child, you do have to take into account certain kind of physical features, light skin versus darker skin, urban child versus some child who is in the rural area in the north or in the south. So that calls for constant communication, open-minded collaborators who will listen to the fact that I don't understand this as an author, and who will listen to the illustrator saying that, look, this is right because these are the features it seems to be right for this particular type of characters. Uh, so I will stop there, hoping to have a chance to get deeper into the specifics of a couple of that I had a chance to have published. Thanks.
Thank you, Charlot. Jynane?
Right. Well, hi everybody. My name is Jynane Juste, and I started my journey as a writer like by passion. I was very passionate about it because my students really enjoyed my storytelling and my dancing, and they inspired me to write books, but I had no idea how to start, where to go. Some people say go to the traditional, and when I went there they asked me, do you have a manuscript? I'm like, no, I have everything in my head. And as a storyteller, I start doing my thing, and like, they were like, okay, very inspiring, but we need an actual physical manuscript to be able to even look. And that will take you a couple of years before we make a final decision if we're gonna take on your books or not. There was so many complications, so I got discouraged. I'm like, okay, what is the next plan? And I start searching around, garder qui ça qu'a fait, comment qu'a fait, livre publié, because I was so engage into the process of writing the book, and it was like a kind of bittersweet feeling, because I had nightmare. I need to have my book. I need to have my book. So when you are in this creative process, you definitely need to use that energy to invest into your creative process. If it get published years later, it's fine, but at least to pay attention to that. So I was lucky enough to find a publishing company in Haiti, C3 edition, I believe. And I told them I want to do the self publishing. But number one, big thing I had, I was too ambitious. My books is in four languages: French, Creole, Spanish, and English. So that again, and the publishing company said, well, we can help you, but we don't speak Spanish and we don't speak English. We can help you in the Creole, maybe, and the French. But this is too ambitious of a project. If you work in all those language, we can put it together for you and print it, but and give you an ISB number and stuff like that. So again, I was very lucky to have a community of author and teachers who work on the different script of my book and edit it. Like Charlotte said, don't go into editing your own books, because one, you write it, so you're very attached to everything. So if you go, you're gonna go scheme around and keep the same mistakes. So that happened to me multiple times. So I was very, very thankful that my friends and many other community members look at it, especially the different languages, to see if it aligns with the story I wanted to publish and if it goes along with children. Because my story is about Haiti, but as about mermaid and about the whale, and you go in between sensitive thematic where some people perceive the mermaid as something diabolical, and but some people really enjoy to know more about it. So it was like a very interesting journey for me to see the approach of a publishing my first book have so many hoops. And then comes the illustration asking me specific question, what do you want for this text, which part of your book you want images, and what images, or can you really tell the story without adding too much or removing. So it was a lot of work to do that I wasn't ready to do it. And I had a full time job, but I was really passionate. And again, as the two colleagues said, don't leave your full time job. It's not going to make you rich, but it's a very interesting process where you're going to enjoy it. I enjoy it, and I will still doing it. I did my second books. I was more prepared, but still I had different difficulty to face because my second book was more ambitious than the first one. Sanson is like over a children book, but over 150 pages versus 45 pages than the first one. And it's just to see like how you see it's very simple compared to this. And the illustration, I was very tired, that was very Haitian related. And if a Haitian person, like a Haitian or a kid who was born in the US, when friends see and their parent can tell them, oh, m'te kon roule sec, oh, m'te kon monte cap, oh, m'te kon so it's very well done. And I'm so grateful for the both illustrator. Like I work with what is his name again? I work with Chuko, Patrick Edouard, and he in Haiti, he makes such beautiful work. And I work with Pro Edition, also beautiful work. So again, pay attention to all the detail. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's all you learn. And both the traditional and the self-published both have, advantages and disadvantages. So it's depending of your energy, your resources, and what you want to accomplish. What is your goal at the end of the journey? For me, I want my book to be celebrated by children. I want family to have it as to remember Haiti in a positive note. I want them to sing and dance, because the other challenge, both of my books come with audio CDs in Creole. So so it wasn't part of the traditional. The traditional way will tell me, no, we don't want CDs. It's too much. You want multiple language, and you want song, you want partition. It's like, make your mind, girls. You're a new author. You're too ambitious. So that's why I went to the self-published route, because you see, it's a lot of work to do. And as a teacher, I felt that my student need that in a classroom. Sometimes we represent all different culture, but we don't have enough appropriate song for kids in classroom to sing, and that is attached to a story. Like this first book is about La Sirène and la Baleine. The song, I didn't wrote the song. It was a traditional song, but there was no story around it. So I created that story that go along with the song. And my mom did some modification on the song. So now it's a catchy song. When I go to school, my student greet me with La sirène, la baleine, chapeau me tombe dans la mer. So it's beautiful to see. At the same time, I'm promoting Haitian culture, but Creole, that was the number one, because I want kids that looks at me be able to see themselves in books, their stories, the way we tell the stories, the way we sing and dance in multiple occasion. So the process is long, either way you go, traditional way or self-publishing. There's a lot of work to do on your part. Don't think, oh, I'm gonna do self-publish and it's gonna be an easy route. No, you still have to be on top of everything and have open conversation with your editors, with your illustrators. And also you need to learn how to market your book. This is where I'm struggling still. Um, because I'm a dancer. I'm there to have joy, but also I need to count and do, all the logistic about my book because I invest so much time and energy. Now also I need to wear that hat where I am a businesswoman and sell the book and make a profit. So either way, just enjoy both process. I enjoy the self-publish, but it's not an easy one to go. But with the community of author that we have now and Creole Beyond now that offer that opportunity to connect with different illustrators and publisher and writer, I think the journey will be easier now. Merci en pile.
Merci, Jinan. You have such, yeah, I love this is the direction that all three people have started with is the process to prepare, because it creates really strong Haitian literature. And at the end of the day, we are creating Haitian literature, and so we have to have our standards because our kids,
Yes.
the people who are going to read it, deserve that. Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear the screaming in the background, or is it getting muted? I just want to make sure.
No, not at
No, okay,
all.
good. I'm like, do I need to close my door? It's asking to be a little bit, but it's also hard because they're having fun, and so I don't want to go downstairs
Yes.
and be like, stop. Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Now we're going to keep moving on, and next we are going to talk about another subset of this, and this is the concept of instead of going through these other publishing companies that the second two have spoken about, like C3, Charlot, I think you use Educavision. Those two, there's also the idea that you just print on demand. So that means like you do everything that everybody else has already done, where you get to your book to printing. And so you're doing the editing. Hopefully you're hiring a professional editor, you're asking what we would call them beta readers in the industry, like people that are reading the books. You're asking if you have a critique partner, and then you have a book that's ready. And instead of publishing like large quantities of it to sell, you literally publish it on demand. So like somebody is like, oh, I like this book. And at the moment that they say they want this book, it gets published. And so there are a number of companies that do it. Amazon is the largest for obvious reasons. Amazon has cornered quite a bit of the market. And so I want to now talk to somebody who does this. And so I'm going to introduce la Caniguilla qui apen apren noni c'est parce que parmi des fanatiques football et puis il un grand footballeur qui pas reconnaître parce que pas connaît de football à part de Messi avec Ronaldinho. Et puis lui-même il travaille pour Lakou Kajou, il est un graffitiste et puis c'est lui-même qui gestionnait les Lakou Kajou, a fait print on demand avec Amazon. Et lui-même tout, il y a plusieurs autres travaux qu'il fait en personnel, à niveau artistique, et puis il crée quelques cours sur plateforme Udemy, si nous-mêmes nous reconnaissons ça, c'est un côté qu'on va aller pour apprendre. Et it's like a school on demand. Et merci Caniguilla, est-ce que là, vous pouvez juste démute tête ou pour introduire tête et puis avancer conversation comme ça?
Hello tout le monde. Nous entendez-moi?
Oui.
Ok, so, moi présenter encore, c'est Caniguilla Tilin et dans la Kajou et que je participe avec plusieurs travaux que la Kajou a fait, surtout dans le livre pour Simone et c'est une expérience qui est vraiment intéressante. Et ça apprend moins à pile tout parce que moi, c'est avec la Kajou, je me fais expérience pour publication livre sur Amazon que je vais parler aujourd'hui. Mais avant que je m'arrive là, c'est vraiment intéressant parce que les que on a construit le livre, là, on a besoin seulement trois étapes. Parce que trois étapes, ça va faire livre pour Timon, nous apprendre qu'on est qui gentil, on doit réfléchir d'abord. Et livre à préparer pour lui, obligé à réfléchir à mots que vous gagnez et mots que vous gagnez pour le mettre dans le livre ça ou pour qu'à faire Timon a senti que il pas besoin de trop de difficultés ensemble avec ça. Et ça t'aide nous à essayer de comprendre partie textuelle là d'abord parce que nous avons une équipe qui crée le livre là par rapport avec texte yo, et texte va venir avec partie visuelle là que moi-même je vais le prendre en charge. Et après que finit partie visuelle là, et c'est là que nous allons répondre avec demande Amazon. Parce que là, nous finissons préparer le livre là, nous avons un pointage hein, qui est fait ici, côté que nous avons plusieurs côtés dans la région qui ont le livre là de façon en copie dure. Mais par rapport avec plusieurs autres demandes que nous avons au niveau international, qui ont Timonio, qui ont fait fait part de livre ça ou pour ka apprendre si moun yo par rapport avec dessin nous gen réalisé dans livre yo. So ça te permet nous virer bon côté Amazon KDP précisément. Et avec Amazon, ça que me devine apprendre, c'est que ou pas qu'à juste rester au publier livre là comme ça. Ou te qui ça parce que il y a des exigences qui vraiment intéressantes côté que yo bon on série de marge que vous supposé respecter. Et à part de marge ça au cours de respecter ou bien texte surtout si texte soit deux tours dans la page là, ça a compté tout pour yo parce que tâche yo vin rendre qui plus facile ou côté que yo vin pas gen trop de difficulté à essayer chercher à prendre tes livres là ou même pour voyer bay moun nan selon demande là c'est que Amazon tout fait tout détail ça pour lui-même seulement ça que limando livre ou gen pour faire c'est pour qui genre de moun ye, si c'est pour adulte si c'est pour petit monde et à part de ça les besoin connaît quantité page que vous besoin mettre dans le livre ça so à partir de chaque page, il y a un size que vous devez respecter. Et ça te met nous au défi parce que chaque nouvelle essai publié un livre que nous faisons pour Timounio, nous obligés à remodifier page, réduire la page, chercher mots qui sont appropriés, chercher des paragraphes qui précis de façon pour nous attirer l'attention de Timounio tout et puis pour nous participer bien à l'apprentissage. Et ça te permet nous réaliser des petits livres qui a à peu près 10 à 12 pages sur Amazon, côté que les qu'on fin résoudre tout détail que Amazon m'a donné par rapport avec size livre là, par rapport avec quantité de texte de mettez, par rapport avec marge que vous supposez respecter. Et à ce moment, les toutes étapes ça respecter que vous allez dans la partie preview pour qu'à faire submit. Si il y a un erreur, il dit catégoriquement, mais si pas il y a un erreur, il dit OK, ou prêt pour qu'à faire un précommande et dans précommande ça la vous le ba en copie du côté que ou bral gain li nan men que Amazon livre ou na des souvenirs et que ou visualiser ou sur et confirmer que toute bagage en forme toute bagage bien disposé et à ce moment-là qu'on y a là ka mettre livre là à disposition pour tout le monde capable de joindre surtout pour monde qui besoin qui pas ici qui vraiment besoin gain accès avec livre ça ou surtout si ou aller sur site nous là Kajou ou après, il y a des vidéos nous fait, il y a des vidéos qui ont rapport avec tout personnage qui fait partie de livre ça, des chansons qui vraiment attirent Timonio et c'est une raison qui fait nous arriver à rentrer dans Amazon pour nous faire tout le monde ça qui est en dehors de Haïti participer avec réalisation ça. So, merci, c'est tout, so, c'est une question. Yes.
Oui, merci un peu. So, ça, je pense que ça aide un peu le monde comprendre tout niveau schéma au monde qui prend pour réaliser livre devant tout le monde. Ou bien on l'autre monde qui a désiré les livres là. Yo bagay qui me à peine apprendre avec print on demand, qui m'a juste rapidement partagé. Et je ne connais pas Caniguilla au courant de ça. Je ne connais longtemps que côté me connais la différence entre Amazon avec Ingram Sparks. Je ne connais ce que connais
Amazon ensemble avec
Ingram.
Ingram, non.
OK, mais rapidement, je vais juste faire un slide et juste
OK.
pour nous-mêmes nous connaître que ça existait.
OK. D'accord,
Et
merci.
so, pour gagner plusieurs services print on demand. Bon, il y a deux vraiment qui en l'air comme des mondes qui plus utilisés. Amazon, quand même, c'est lui-même qui a plus, plus quantité de marché. Bon, il est limité avec seulement Amazon. Si vous désirez pour publier livre dans la bibliothèque indépendante, like independent bookstores, ça qui dans zone côté Lakou, en pile fois, yo pas accepté Amazon KDP à cause de Amazon KDP, yo weli comme gen moins restrictions avec moins exigences sur livre. Mais malgré nous t'en gen pile exigences comparatif avec Ingram Sparks, ça lui-même a permettre que ou même gen accès avec independent bookstores, il a permettre gen accès avec bookshop.org, il a permettre gen accès avec Barnes Noble. So en pile fois, si c'est même qui a fait ça ou pas self-publish et en pile fois, moun fait tous les deux. You fait Amazon, KDP,
You have
et
an
you fait
echo.
Ingram Spark.
You have an
Okay.
echo.
Oh, I'm sorry. How about now?
Better.
Okay. Can you please get outside and close the door? Thank you. Sorry. I don't know if it's all like the whoosh of the wind from the running back and forth. But did everybody hear the distinction of the two? Yeah, okay. So I just wanted to just point that out. I can't remember what language I did it in, but in any event, it's on both languages on the screen. Okay, working with an illustrator. And I know that's a big question for people. How do you find an illustrator? I want to have an illustrator that's Haitian and knows, what a Haitian child looks like. I want to have an illustrator that I don't have to explain basic concepts to. And so if you decide to go self-publishing route, then you do, or independent publishing, you are going to be working with your own illustrator. In traditional publishing, you don't get to pick your own illustrator unless it's like a very small press. But usually a larger company, they will assign you an illustrator. Now in the industry, it has become more common to suggest an illustrator. You can say, I want an illustrator that is Black and understands, Black people and has like a portfolio full of Black kids. Or I want to,
I still hear the echo.
Oh,
Other
you do?
people hear echo?
Is it
Is it me or is it?
can anyone else tell me if they hear an echo or not?
I don't hear it.
No, I don't
Okay.
hear.
Okay,
No.
it's me.
Let me try muting.
I don't either, and I hear you pretty clearly.
Okay,
Okay.
it's me then.
Okay. All right. And so that's new for traditional publishing, but it was not very common before. With that being said, I want to introduce Rodney. Rodney is somebody who has actually illustrated for a lot of Haitian authors. He's a cartoonist and illustrator, born in Brooklyn and raised in Port-au-Prince. His work blends traditional drawing with digital illustrations. He is a graduate of the School of Visual Arts, and he has worked in all kinds of illustrations. Rodney, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Good evening, guys. Everybody can hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
at least I can.
Okay. Yes, thank you for the introduction. I've been working as an illustrator, mostly with children's books for almost a decade. I mostly work with the Haitian community. I work with Haitians in Haiti and everywhere else. So because of technology, you can find an artist pretty much anywhere around the world. But like a lot of people are saying today, a lot of times you want an artist that can understand what you wrote about. And I just wanted to just briefly touch on certain things as an artist through my experience and what I look for and what I try to do as an illustrator working with a writer. I mostly work with independent writers, but I have done some work for traditional companies. And I wanted to touch on one of the books. It's an example of what, as an artist, what I look for. I've worked on a book for Educa, and it was a bilingual book, meaning there was it was going to be in Creole and English, and all in the same book. I've worked on other books before where it's multi-language, but it's different books. For example, I worked on a book called Luc Visit Jickael, but then there was a Creole version called Luc Visite Jickael. But those are like two different publications, two different numbers. But the other book that I wrote, that I illustrated, this one was a book that has both languages. And the reason why I want to touch on that is because as an illustrator, the first thing I want to know is, number one, is what's the age? What's the age? What's the age range? Because sometimes that affects how much word is going to be in the book, and that affects how much illustrations I can put in the page. Also, one of the things I look for is well, the number one thing I look for is, do you have your script? I have earlier in my career, I have worked with writers or creators that didn't have their script. They have their ideas, and it just makes things harder because as you're basically designing a house and you're building the house at the same time, and it's tough. So what I always tell writers is to have a script, meaning the words that are going to be in the book, have it written already. And my job is to try to create those words in images. And it makes a big difference. I know sometimes writers and creators, think they can just have the idea, but it's very important to have the words written and to have because part of my job also is to imagine how the words are going to look in the page. Because remember, the kids are going to read the words, and they're not just reading the words, they are seeing the images in the word. And it's a creative process. And it's a creative process that not just is my job, but it's a collaboration with you as a writer. And so again, always have the script ready, and then know what the book is going to look like. In other words, the size and the format. In other words, is it going to be portrait? Is it going to be wide scale? Is it going to be spreads? And a spread means the image goes from page to page, like one image that goes from page to page, because all that determines how I'm going to illustrate the book. I had an experience with a book before where I'm glad we brought up the difference between KDP, Amazon, and Ingram, because I had an experience where I did the book and the book was in a wide landscape format. So I illustrated all the images to be wide. But then for that size, I believe it was Ingram didn't have that size available. So basically I had to redesign the book, replace some of the images to have the book a hardcover and portrait. So these are things, so not just having a script and having all the words ready, but knowing the format and the size of the book and knowing where you're going to get it printed. Because some printers may have, for example, I know Amazon doesn't have hardcover, at least for now, at least the last time I did with Amazon, they don't have hardcovers more than 11 inches. So if you have an idea for a large book, you may have to check to see if maybe Ingram can help you with that. And so, yeah, knowing how you're going to print it, knowing your format and having your script ready is very important, because that helps me as an illustrator to get the work done faster. And I guess the last thing I'll say for now, if you guys have any questions, you guys can throw it on the chat. The last thing I'll say is it is a creative process. Obviously you're gonna have deadlines. Some people don't have deadlines. They just have like just this dream that they want to do. But some people want to have a deadline. They want to be done by a certain time. And again, the more that you have ready to approach an illustrator, the faster things can get done. And also, again, just a quick thing that I think some of you may have some ideas. Yes, and get an editor. Because your illustrators sometimes can do some editing, but that's not the main thing. And just, in my experience, part of the reason I do editing is for creative reasons. Like I want to see, hey, what does that mean? Like, if somebody told me they're doing a book, in Haiti and they put the word gudu gudu, if I don't know what that means, like I'm gonna ask you questions and so that's where things like having some references for the artists. And as an artist, I also always talk to the writers about the references I'm using. And so if you have any references for your artists, like if it's something that, oh, I want this character to look like my grandmother, or, oh, I want this to be like my old neighborhood. Here's a couple of pictures. Again, those are things that can really speed up the process and also help creatively. And at the end of the day, I have my creative visions about what I'm reading. But you may also add to it as it goes along. So that's all I'll say for now. And if you guys have any questions, you guys can ask me.
Thank you so much, Rodney. I really appreciate hearing as a writer, like what the illustration process looks like, is because there's for picture books, right? One doesn't exist without the other. So it's always really nice to hear what the collaborative process looks like. And something I wish I had known when I first started is to give the illustrator a little bit of breathing room. I was very, 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 very detailed in what I wanted on the page, but the illustrator is also an artist and they can absolutely bring in something that you might not think of. And I put in the chat that in my first book, the illustrator added these like pochadek, like kikale, ebi kikoke su fenêtre, and it was just so perfectly Haitian. And I felt like, okay, that's something I would not have gotten had I not gotten somebody who not only that she was Haitian and she had spent summers in the countryside. And so she just was living a very different kind of life than some people. Okay, so I remember when I said it was gonna take 30 minutes, it's taken 1 hour. But I think we have gotten a lot of really good information and hopefully everybody is getting what they came here out of this. So the last person, and certainly not least, I want to talk to somebody who is actually on the publishing side, the person who will actually, I think we think of publishing as printing, and that's one part of it, but then it comes with a lot of other parts too. And so I wanted to also have on this, we wanted to also have on this panel somebody who does that part of the publishing process. And so this is a publishing consultant, Jickael. Thank you so much for being here. He is editor-in-chief of Citadelle Publishing, an independent self-publishing consulting firm founded in 2015. This is the place that you'd go if you're like, I have this great idea, I have the book written, but I don't want to figure out how to do this from A even a Z. I'm going to hire somebody to help. And Jickael doesn't only do children's books, he does other books, but today he's in the capacity to share with us with this. He's also an author. Jickael, if you could go ahead and unmute and join us, please.
Absolutely. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
All right. Thank you so much, Régine, and kudos to you and the team on Creole and Beyond. Wonderful platform, and I look forward to jumping on and collaborating with all these wonderful authors, writers, and illustrators. So my name is Jickael Bazin, as Régine nicely introduced. I am a publishing consultant. Company is called Citadelle Publishing. Started the company in 2015, and as you guys can probably notice by the name of the company, Citadelle, I stay true to my Haitian roots. Naming the company after Citadelle La Filière, which stands for strong, structure, long-lasting, and there to help, after all. So pretty much we started the company back in 2015 after my co-authors and I published our self-published book, which was called Single Man, Married Man. We received a lot of media coverage on it. We were included in several magazines. The book did really, really well. But following the publication of the book and going on book tours, the question that we were always asked was, how did you guys do self-publishing? What's the process? What did you guys do? So we started purely from a consulting basis, consulting authors on how to go step by step through the process from creating your manuscript, all the way out to marketing the book and going on book tours and so on and so forth. Shortly thereafter, we ran into a couple of authors that were like, and as a few of the panelists alluded to, this is not something that you want to quit your job and dive full head into. This is more a passion that you have. My passion is helping authors realize their dream of publishing their book. I mean, the best reward that I get is after helping authors and they see the end result or the product, or we get that first order of books in and they open the box and they see the books and they're like, oh my God. For me, that does it all. So a couple of authors came to us and they're like, well, I work full time or I work nights and I don't really have the time to go to talk to 5, 6 different people, editors, cover designers, illustrators. So can you do it for me? So we kind of took that on. We started the company. We transitioned the company from just purely consulting to actually helping authors get fully published on a self-publishing, print-on-demand kind of in that space, right? So we're not a traditional publishing company. We just help authors go through the self-publishing phase where we collaborate with companies that you've mentioned like Amazon, Ingram, and several others also that we worked with only because, again, all these different platforms have different restrictions. They have different, book sizes that they offer, different covers that they're able to offer. So based on the book that the author is looking to publish, we kind of suggest these different platforms and then we kind of take it from there. I have a preference to Ingram, specifically because one of the things we alluded to now, is that Ingram allows you to have global distribution. It allows you to sell to different bookstores, including Barnes and Nobles and all the other, major retailers, as well as giving you global distribution all over, global distribution in many, many, many different countries. So I'd like to kind of go through what I call the 8-step process of self-publishing, which is what I go through with all the authors. It's not gonna take too much time, but I kind of want to let your audience know if you are gonna go through the self-publishing route versus the traditional route, because again, the traditional company is going to handle all these different steps for you. But as a self-published author or an indie published author, these are pretty much the 8 steps that you're going to go through, right? So the first major step, obviously, is to complete your manuscript, right? That's the most important part. Having a fully completed manuscript before you even contact an author or an agent, anybody like that, is make sure your manuscript is completed. That doesn't mean it's already edited, just meaning that you've written everything that you want to have included in your book, right? So you feel your book is finished at that point. From that point on, you want to go into your editing phase, right? So you want to either contact an editor or a proofreader. There are different types of editors. There are developmental editors, there's copy editors, there's proofreaders. So I traditionally like to go through all 3 because the developmental editor is going to look at the big picture and the context of your book. The copy editor is really going to look for grammar, punctuation, style, things like that. And then your proofreader is the final step where they kind of polish it up for you, right? So they add that gloss to it. And then you want to go into your book design. Now, a lot of these steps can be done concurrently. So as the book is being edited, you can also have somebody designing your cover for you, right? You're going to go through your book design, your interior layout or design, which includes any illustrations that you have, the font that you want to use for your book, any little quirky designs that you want to include in your book, any images, photographic images that you want to use in your book. So we want to lay all of that out. That's step number 3. Number 4 is pretty much, this is where I would suggest to the author which platform we're going to use to go ahead and publish your book, whether it's Amazon KDP, Ingram Spark, Draft to Digital, Smashwords, whichever one fits best for your style of book is the one that we would, collaborate together and go with. Once we do that, then we want to get your ISBN number. The ISBN number is pretty much the International Standard Book Number. It's a 13-digit code for your book. which is a unique code that identifies your book. Think of it in simple terms as your book's social security number. All right, so this is the number that's going to go on the inside the book and on your barcode. And then we also want to get you an LCCN assignment, which is a Library of Congress number. That's where most libraries and even bookstores go to find new titles. And from there, they can decide whether to bring it into the library or purchase the book for the bookstores. So we definitely want to get both the ISBN number and the LCCN number. Next, we want to decide on pricing. How much you want to charge for your book? All right, we want to determine what's the book value to you. I had an author that came to me and wrote a book that was 100 pages, and they wanted to charge $60 for the book. Well, that was the value to them, and I said, okay, we can start it, but if that $60 doesn't work, we're going to have to bring it down. So it all determines on obviously the amount of work which you feel you've put into the book and what you feel the value is on the book is. So determining pricing. And then, of course, we want to go into your launch preparation, right? Creating your author website. Now, I highly suggest that authors have their own website, whether it's a company, whether you're publishing for a company or whether you're publishing for yourself. You want to have a website because I believe that selling your book directly on your website will generate the most profit for you, right? So even though we use Amazon and Ingram to publish books, and for example, Amazon, once you use them and you publish through Amazon, they automatically put your book on their platform. But the bad side of that is that they take 60% of the profits, right? So I suggest that everyone have a website that people can go onto the website and purchase the book directly from the website. And through your whole marketing process, you want to drive everybody who's interested in your book, whether you're on a book tour, whether you're on a podcast, whether you're on speaking engagements. I always suggest to my authors, your book is available on Amazon, but don't necessarily say that when you're at speaking engagements. Give everybody your website, because your website is going to tell your full story, and it's also going to allow people to purchase your book directly from your website. And which directly leads into marketing and promotions. All right, so now with social media, marketing has taken on a whole different life. It's a lot easier for self-published authors to go into marketing, but as Djenane, is that your name? As Djenane mentioned, don't think that it's easy, right? Especially this part right here, the marketing part, because you have to put yourself out there. You have to believe in your work. Passion is one thing. Belief that it's going to sell is a whole nother ballgame, right? So you have to believe that it's going to sell. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to go on book tours. You have to be willing to go on panels, such as what we're doing right now. You have to be willing to do speaking engagements, because that's how the public, your audience, is going to get to know who you are. They're going to learn about your story. You could go into a library and do a book reading, right? Where you read a chapter of your book for an audience. And from there, they get to know who you are, and they pick up interest in your book, which leads to word of mouth marketing, right? So there's a lot of different ways to go about the marketing process now as a self-published author. But again, that's definitely one of the most critical steps in garnering sales for your book. And lastly is the post-launch, right? After your book is out, after you've gone through the marketing process, what do I do now, right? Of course, there are the minute things like tracking sales. You want to encourage readers to give you reviews on your website. You want to continue to do podcast interviews. As I mentioned to the author who wanted to charge $60 for his book, you want to be able to adjust your pricing and or your category if necessary, depending on where your book is selling. And then lastly, definitely keep the momentum going, right? So release new editions, release sequels for your book, keep engaging, growing relationships with your readers. One of my favorite clients, who I actually see in the audience today, Her name is Donnell Champagne. So her and her um, partner, Winnie Lamour, they co-authored a children's book, which we helped them publish. I'm sure that a lot of you probably know. It's Vérité sous tambour dans Jardin Simone, and actually Rodney Sanon illustrated this book. So I was very happy to see Rodney on the panel. But working with Donnell and Winnie was a breath of fresh air for me. One, because they were two of the first Haitian authors that I worked with, but they were the first children's book that I worked on. And they had a clear vision of what they wanted. And again, the lasting result, what I love the most is when they got their books, what they saw, and it almost brought them to tears. So even though we're not a traditional publishing company, one of the things that I truly pride myself on is delivering quality. Right. So when even as a self-published author, when you get the final product, it's going to look like it came from a traditional publisher. So those are pretty much the 8 steps to self-publishing. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask away. And anybody who's looking to write or get some consultation, feel free to reach out to me. I'll leave my number.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Jickael. That's taken an hour and 20 minutes, well, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, but I think it was really worth it. And if you're new to this, I think I really wish I had this when I first started off, because I had to piece all this together for myself. So thank you so much, all the panelists, for participating. And we're going to open it up for questions. And I've been taking down notes along the way. We technically end at 8:30. I said about 90 minutes, but I blocked for 2 hours. And so we can go a little bit over if people feel the need to, and if everyone is available. I did want to make one note. I put it in the slides, but I didn't say it out loud. The industry is rapidly changing because of AI. And I have very strong opinions about AI and art, but that's not what I'm going to share with you today. What I'm going to share with you is that if you elect to use AI to generate parts of your book, you will limit where you can distribute that book. You won't be able to distribute in, let's say, bookshop.org. You won't be able to distribute in a lot of smaller bookstores. And so just be mindful that that is a possibility if you go that route with generating your illustrations or your text. And also, AI-generated work is not copyrightable, and so you are not protected as a creator. And so I think you should write and draw your own books, but that is just something I wanted to make sure I made that note, because I know that's becoming more and more of an avenue for people. Okay, let's, all of the panelists can come off mute and people can be free to answer, whoever wants to answer. The first question we have is, it happened when Jonas was speaking, somebody asked about writing groups. And I think that also really goes right into the idea of getting your book critiqued by peers or potential audience. You might call that like a beta reader. Can Jonas or whoever talk about the process of creating the book and that first manuscript, how you went about actually creating the manuscript to be able to go into the rest of the process?
Yeah, I can answer that. The very first thing I want to say, to be a writer, you have to be a good reader. I read at least 3 books per month. So the more you read, the more you know how to write. Okay. And I think Régine, we met in a book club actually, in a Haitian book club, and I'm part of 3 different book clubs. So the reason I do that is because I'm Haitian. I went to school in Mexico, and I'm here in America right now as a psychiatrist. So I need those different way of seeing things to have my own style. Okay. So, and if you read something that I write, you will perceive that also. So that's the first thing I will tell people. You need to know to read a lot so you can know how to write. The second thing I will tell people, you cannot you cannot write alone. You know, everything that I write, my fiance is actually on that call. She read every single thing that I write and she give me feedback. For sure, she's always trying to be nice with me. So I look for other people who have no relationship either with the Haitian community. I do a lot of work with the Hmong community here. They are Asian people. So I want those critiques. So after I do that, so now I'm able to submit it somewhere. So I have article that I submit just to see how the public is responding to my own writing. So I share all that to say, first of all, read a lot. Second, read or write with other people. Let them criticize you. It's better for a couple of people to criticize you right now than when the book is out, people kind of like tell it's not good. So that's the thing. And then the book itself, it took me 1 year and a half to write it before I submit it. But I was writing almost every single day. You know, I was writing it. This draft is not good. We write it again. This draft is not good. And then, like I already mentioned, I submitted to 4 publishers. The very first one who offered me a book contract, I took it and then move on. Yeah, so I don't know if I answered the question, but if I don't, please let me know.
Yes, I think you answered the question. If anybody else wants to chime in about this process of actually developing a manuscript. Any of the other panelists?
I will say I have a lot of brainstorming activity before and just ping-pong the main point in your audience. Who is your book's gonna be? For me, I know it will be for children, but also at the same time, I want it to be broad so adults can enjoy reading it, even though it's a kid's book. There will be information that will be for like people who haven't been to Haiti for many years and know some deep information in some context. And I will say, like other authors, I say, have other people read your book because you're attached with it, so you it's always going to sound the way you want it, but you can always have room to add some really exciting thing, and other people can come up with idea. You don't have to take all the ideas. You are the owner of your book, but you can listen to them and see how it can help your book um reach a broader community, and at the same time work very well with your illustrator if you're adding picture, because that's you have a part of the story and your illustrator have the other part. So when you work well with them, it merge in a beautiful work. But if it's just your idea, like you were talking about the Shadek, a beautiful example is that, you have your idea, but your illustrator brought something even magnificent. So yes, definitely.
That's how important it is to also have non-Haitian friends and relatives look at your book. Haitian friends and relatives, and they might tell you that under those circumstances, if Haiti loses to Scotland, they might tell you, why didn't you put that programme te prepare entité verveine ou entité Tibon? Parce que so gain intestinal disturbances. Now, a Haitian person will tell you about the need to bring those Haitian remedies into your text to make it more authentic. So that's one. A non-Haitian person now, if you are very clear with them, you don't want them to be PC, politically correct, they will actually come back to you and start raising questions about gender dynamics, about generational dynamics or differences, about environmental consideration. Because if you're writing a book with the intent of having a wide and broad audience, you do need to take into account that this particular audience will have some interest into seeing those kind of components or elements, or this particular audience will also be surprised to see that you are referring to a particular type of leaves, which Haitians know what are their virtue, but they don't. So in both cases, you are led to either fine-tune or to find alternatives. If in Haiti, it's not every day that a kid will find an apple to eat, but you are trying to emphasize the virtue of a particular type of dynamic, you would actually want to change the apple to something like orange or avocado. Donc, moi, je point encore une fois que moun sa qui pas haïtien, puis tout aussi important pour aider à prendre en considération une série de contextes que vous avez besoin dans le livre là pour faire beaucoup plus universel et inclusif.
Yeah, perfect. Merci. I don't know if Charlot was clear for everybody. You have like a little bit of an echo, but just in case, I will reiterate. So he made the really good point, 2 points. The person who is a Haitian person doing an early critique of your book is also really important because they can bring in those cultural elements and highlight them, like, for example, herbal remedies. But the person who is outside the culture, if you tell them to remove themselves from being politically correct, they'll start to raise questions like gender dynamics, generational roles. They'll start to ask you questions that might make you really, really think of it more. And I want to echo that as well. The other thing I liked about asking people outside of the culture about my books is that it forced me to make it clear enough that they understood. That way I made sure everybody that was Haitian would understand, because we're not a monolith, right? We all have different experiences. But if I made it clear enough that somebody completely outside the culture could understand it, then my book was clear to everybody who was in my audience. We have another question in the chat. If nobody else wants to answer on the panel this particular question, I'm going to ask this really great question. I think Caniguilla was interested in answering it. Question c'est, est-ce qu'il est difficile pour travailler avec moun qui fait édition ou bien rédacteur? Et est-ce qu'il est difficile ou bien frustré de plusieurs langues qui dans le livre là? Et puis Caniguilla, on va parler sur ça bien parce que là, le livre là, Kajou, est-ce qu'il y a tout plusieurs langues ou bien plus fort de plusieurs langues?
Et tout pas gen plusieurs langues, mais moi quand je travaille sur dans tout livre nous fait que nous publions sur Amazon, le plus souvent me développe sur ça tout. Pour plusieurs autres monde qui en dehors de Haïti, nous fait plus fort en créole, français et anglais. Et moi quand gagne que me travaille sur lui qui est en espagnol tout. Mais est-ce que c'est difficile? Est-ce que c'est frustrant? Ça a une partie qui est très intéressante là-dedans parce que pour qui ça, les web travaillent en livre côté que vous avez plusieurs éditeurs qui soi-disant et sont en langue différente, intéressant à la fois frustrant et à la fois difficile. Mais quand il y a ça qui est important, c'est que si il y a une bonne collaboration entre équipes là, c'est là vraiment 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 fantastique parce que ça va le passer. Si il y a un shot qui dit que, on dit, supposons, on a utilisé un mot et que tout le monde pas d'accord sur le mot, là, il frustre. On dit que tout le monde pas vraiment gain entente qui dit que n'a utilisé tel mot, là, il vient un petit genre et difficile parce que, ou même qui a créé le livre, là, ou même qui a fait qui fait partie graphique là, les que vous tombez sous mot ça et que ouais, il y a une discussion qui sous lui qui pour qu'on ait une entente, les comme ça obligé de mettre le sous-entendu et que on va continuer à l'autre. Donc là qu'on a vu on petit pas qu'à dire rien ni commenter c'est juste un, mais entre-temps, faut qu'il y ait une entente qui dit que OK, n'a pas mot ça ou bien li certifié ou soit li certifié un côté qui dit que c'est mot ça qui bon, c'est lui qui like non, 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 comme tu as dit ça. C'est lui qui représente mot que nous devons utiliser dans le langage un peu important dans le livre, n'a mettre là. Et que là, au certifié, vous pouvez côté l'écrit et que là, n'a pas avancé. Mais j'aime dire là, les frustrant vraiment et difficile, mais depuis qu'ils ont bon entente, les vient pas vraiment compliqué pour parce que là, ça, on va juste entendre ce qui nous devons utiliser, qui ça qui est bon, qui ça n'a pas et puis là, ça n'a pas avancé. But c'est une expérience mais on paquet l'autre nous fait surtout quoi ou dit Sanon qui qui c'est un illustrateur qui travaille sur ça qui t'a parlé de plusieurs éditeurs et les éditeurs là qu'on qui ça avant que image là créé ça est important tout parce que bah c'est lui qui a fait face à ça c'est me tromper mais oui question c'est ça réponse c'est oui et non mais c'est ça dépend de exactement l'environnement là.
Yeah.
Sous un environnement que tout le monde entend et que tout le monde vraiment, vraiment collaborer, là, il vient pas ni frustrant, là, qu'on y a tout le monde entend et puis nous jeunes vrai point, et puis nous avancer.
Régine, ça c'est un point que moi mais Caniguilla merci en pile parce que c'est problème moi toujours gagné avec maison d'édition et puis avec Illustrator pour premier livre moi il y a 4 langues, il y a en espagnol, il y a en français, il y a en créole, il y a en anglais. Et façon nous te joindre pour nous identifier chaque langue dans le même livre là, c'est mettre tu vois petit dessin ça yo à côté langue là. Donc comme ça le petit moun n'a appelé ou bien grand moun n'importe qui li connaît que livre là commencé chaque couleur ça yo commencé avec texte là qui dans langue là. Mais problème nous te gagné c'est même en créole te gen des difficultés comme moun la gonav tant comme maman nous utiliser bois. Mais yo dit non, puis le monde pas connaît mot bois, yo connaît canot ou bien yo connaît petit bateau. Donc même pour arrangement texte en créole, c'était très difficile. Donc j'étais content que j'étais travaillé avec MIT, Haïti avec monsieur De Graff, mais c'est en pile et le auteur a travaillé avec plusieurs langues en même temps. Li ba en pile difficulté, même penser c'est un projet qui très prometteur parce que ça permet un pile monde en même temps capable joindre avantage livre là et joindre avantage illustration. Je pense que c'est des activités qui poussent au faire plus que ça qu'on fait avant. Donc bah qu'on sous une expérience ça mais pour avec Illustrator m't'a travaillé là li parle créole avec français donc il y a quelques mots qui étaient en espagnol li pas de comprendre ou bien en anglais il dit oh bah ça veut dire non. Donc là il était très intéressant même parce que au fur et à mesure que n'a développé style là parce que moi toujours voulais continuer écrire dans quatre langues ça parce que me joindre feeling là, avec passion dans quatre langues et me penser que communauté nous a grandi avec toute immigration ça tout le monde qui tout côté qui parle plusieurs langues qui c'est haïtien que nous ca offrir livre nous avec illustration nous pour communauté ça. Encore merci. Questions ça sont très belles questions.
Yeah, c'est une belle question.
Une question un petit bail.
Oui. Oui.
Je t'aime un petit bail sur ça parce que gon livre ont été fait, livre il est pas Medjiwof, s'il vous plaît. Yo changé titre là combien de fois? C'est avec Educa et m'te fait lire ça. Yo changé titre livre un paquet de fois. Pas Medjiwof, pas mettre Jiwof si tant pris. Est-ce que vous mettez tant prix? Est-ce que vous ne pas mettre tant prix? Mais ça, c'est un nom de livre qui te gagne deux langues là-dedans. C'était créole avec anglais. Si là en anglais, c'est No Jew of Please. Mais quand il y a un devinement de question, est-ce que pour nous translate Jew of là? Parce qu'en anglais, c'est clove. Mais au fond, décision créative, il y a un mot Jew of là, même dans l'anglais. Ça, c'est une décision créative, lui, ça. Vous comprenez? Ça, c'est une décision éditeur ou fait. Il dit, ah, comme ça, son livre, ce sont pas seulement un livre en créole, mais son livre culture haïtien. Il voulait qu'il y ait un moi, même dans le titre là. So, même éditeur, tout, il y a une décision créative qu'il a fait, que ça, il a changé de titre là, quoi, même 4 fois même.
Oui, merci, Rodney. Josiane, c'est sur ça que tu voulais ajouter, moi, ou bien, mais on levé.
Oui, moi, je voulais dire que là, nous a commencé à faire publication la Kajou sur Amazon. Yo pas de faire des livres qui en créole seulement. Donc, yo te dit que c'est pas une langue que yo même yo capable checker édition. Hein? Donc, c'est comme ça nous te fait livre en 3 langues et nous te mettez créole, anglais, français là-dedans. Alors, là, c'est un monde qui fin fait livre et puis la vendre en créole sur Amazon, c'est possible. Mais le CKDPA n'a pas utilisé, yo exigé au moins une langue que yo même y habitué avec.
Oh, wow. But concernant le KDP. I don't, oh. Interesting. C'est pour moun qui pas attendé pour Amazon KDP obligé d'utiliser au moins une langue qui est même habitué. So, probablement anglais avec français, espagnol, effectivement pas créole. Merci pour ça, pour tout le monde qui fait intervention. Ça. Nous avons une autre belle question dans le chat. Là. Attendez, je vais regarder pour qui te côté de... OK. Saint-Hilaire Freeven demandait un pile monde qui a commencé à écrire quand senti yo inquiétude dans tête yo pour commencer. Qui ça nous ka bay comme conseil pour moun sa yo qui ont genre qui a à peine commencé qui peut gagner confiance là.
I can share one of the best advice that I received from Edwidge Dandicat. Edwidge came to Minneapolis. She had a book. In fact, that was like 2 years ago. I told her that I said, I don't feel like I can talk about my own story, especially I'm Haitian. Who will be interested in such story? And then she told me the first thing you have to do, or you should do, is to write for yourself. Write for yourself, not writing for anybody else. You just write for yourself. And that's what I literally did. I write for myself. And then once you feel confident enough, now you start writing for your friends. So when I came to Minnesota, I have an adoptive parents, they're like two white people. So whenever I will write and then I will give them to read because they are doctors too, and then they will give me feedback. And then after I did that, now the next step is to write for everybody else. So now after that, I joined a group of immigrant and refugee writers here in Minneapolis, where the refugees were from, the immigrants were from Hmong, others from Iraq, I'm from Haiti, and we start writing together. And then I don't know if you guys know about Pen America, which is a huge organization of writers. So they came and then they do public reading with us. So I was able to be featured in one of their, series, and I met the Pen America president, and I also met Pen International president too. So what I'm trying to say is it's a very long journey writing, and to build confidence, it can take a long time. So I will definitely encourage you just write for yourself. You can start by writing a letter, just a letter, like one page. And then once you feel confident, you share it with the closest friend, a partner, closest friend. And then after that, you start writing for the people too. And then when you're ready, you can also have a blog. Now I use it. I have a Substack, and in my Substack, I mainly write about the book coming up. But you can do that. At some point, I had a Medium too. But yeah, I would say those are the thing to do. To build your self-confidence might take 6 months, you might take a year, 5 years, 10 years. Do not rush. You go as slow as you can.
To piggyback on what Jonas just said, as far as writing for yourself, also always remember regret is worse than fear. So you never want to get to a point where you regret not, if you have an idea or if you have a story that you want to tell, you never want to get to a point where you regret not writing it or regret not going through the process, because that feeling of regret is going to be a lot stronger than the fear or anxiety or anything you might be feeling as far as not having confidence as a writer. So just get started, put pen to paper, and go through the process, go through the journey.
The other thing I'll add too is that wap sezi wè a ki nivou moun ouve. Donc ou ka panse, pa konen si sa arrive nan apil lot fami, bon mwen menm tou mwen sa nan apil nan Haitien nan entourage nou telman vle bagay parfait. Donc nou menm si nou ap ese apren anglais, nou pa vle pale devan anglais devan nan moun parce ki pou ka parfait. Donc ou ka kwaze vek wan Haitien ki di, mpa pale anglais to bien, oui, puis moun nan lage anglais ki, donc ou preske menm jan avek anglais kem gen. Nou gen ou perfeksyon. Bon, sam vin realize ki kombinote moun ki vreman serye kom moun kap ekri, yo telman ouve, et puis wap toujou jwen plus kompasyon ki mwes nan moun ki wap pataje liv sa yo avek. Et puis mwen toujou di, mwen toujou ouve pou li sa moun ekri. So, ou ka toujou kontakte mwen, et si ou poko pre pou bay lot moun liv. So, ekri yo, telman konta li yo avan.
Let me drop one thing also about that perfection thing. It's okay to have a lot of rejection. It's okay. Like it's rejection is part of the journey. I submitted probably I write essay also. I submitted probably 4 essays at the beginning of the year. Only one I think one or two get accepted. You see what I mean? So I just need one to be accepted. Like I don't need thousands of opportunity. I just want one opportunity, one person to listen to me, one. And from there I built, everything else. I know in Haiti, we grew up kind of like you should have done it yesterday. Et ou pas konnen, baton, baton, baton. Like we get traumatized. We are so traumatized. You dit, chaque qui tombe dans de l'eau chaude, perd de l'eau frette. You see what I mean? So we are so scared that okay, like we feel like something bad will happen. But yeah, so throw yourself and you cannot swim by staying at outside the water. You have to throw yourself in the water. You either, sorry to say that, you either die that way or you survive. So
Yeah.
you will survive. Trust me, you will survive.
That is really, yeah, and you're right. I knew the mental health person on the stand would be the one to give us the background as to why we have such a high perfectionism. I don't think there are any other questions in the chat. If anybody else has any other questions, please feel free to either put them in the chat or you can unmute yourself or do any of the one thing I'm going to ask as we close is for each of the panelists to say where people can find you. And I know people have asked if they'll get this information. I will send it, this will be on YouTube, the full video, but for people who signed up through their email, I will reduce all of the things that were shared into a 2 or 3 pager. You'll get the slide deck and you'll also get everybody's information along with where you can find them and get their books. But I do want to have every panelist verbally say, so you get both for people who are verbal learners or written learners, you'll get both about everybody that's shared today. So if there are no other questions, we can start in the same order, or no other things from the panelists, we'll start in the same order that we started, and you can tell people where they can find you, and where your books are, and any other information you want to share. Let me just make sure. Okay, Jonas already put his author website in the chat, but Jonas, go ahead and say it out loud for people who may not know how to navigate to the chat.
So I use Instagram, Substack. So both of them are Jonas Attilus, JONASATTILUS, and I have a website also, jonasattilus.com.
And for those who don't know, Substack is a newsletter service. And so anytime it's just like a place for writers to write articles. Yeah, I subscribe to Jonas's Substack and I enjoy getting my every other week letters. Okay, thank you, Jonas. And then next we had Charlot. Oh no. Can anyone hear him?
Try again.
I don't know.
We can't hear it.
CharlotLucien.com.
Charlot,
Charlot
say
Lucien.
it again, parce que nous pas attendre.
CharlotLucien.com.
Et puis, ou gen on livre ti moun ki deyo, pa vre ki apen soti.
Oui,
Et
venu
puis,
sur Jickael Vision.
sou Jickael Vision.
Après, c'est un autre livre qui est sorti tout, et venu sur Trilingual Press.
Ok, ou geni devan na?
We are Haitian art in New England.
Oh, ou nou pa ka wè. Can you put it back a little bit further? Beautiful. That's a beautiful color. Cover. Okay.
Vision art book, and then a children's book on Educa Vision, and this one on Trilingual Press. And I'll send the information.
Okay, parfait. Merci. Djenane? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. I already put it in the chat, but it's Djenane Saint-Just Books at gmail.com. And the same for the email. And so far, I have 2 books. I have out the La Sirène avec la Baleine and also Tisonson avec Pouvoir Tambour. So
Okay.
if people are interested. Merci beaucoup.
Okay.
Merci en pile.
Rodney?
Quand je le mets sous rodneysanon.com. Et sur Instagram, Rodney SSSS, with 4S. Et bon, je finir un livre là avec Vive Livre. Et m'a posté sur chat là. Et nous, quand je me si vous voulez email moi, ou bien email moi sur Gmail, c'est rodneysanon, gmail.com.
OK, parfait. Et puis, Caniguilla, au moins, vous mettez tout bagage dans le chat là. Ça, c'est pour Lakou Kajou.
Oui,
OK.
oui, nous t'aidons. Et au moins, mettez, et pour la Kajou, si nous besoin de accès ensemble avec Livio sur site yo, hein, nous capable de joindre. Mais si tu as besoin de accès ensemble avec moi personnellement, qu'à mettre email moi
Yeah, mettez dans le chat là.
dans le chat là qui c'est canig78
OK.
ça commercial gmail.com. Après ça, moi mettez pour contenu, tout ça nous se parle, on a besoin sur site la Kajou.
OK,
Allez.
parfait. Merci. Et puis, dernièrement, Jickael.
Nous, quand je me sous email, c'est jbazin@citadellebooks.com. Website, c'est citadellebooks.com. Et sur Instagram, Citadelle Books.
OK, perfect. OK, bon, merci tout panélistes yo. Merci. Et puis, pour moun qui là, toujours, n'a voyé toute l'information. Et puis, on connaît nous toujours semaine livre pour ti moun en créole. Pour qu'on finisse, vendredi, n'a un autre webinaire sous créole en dedans, l'école yo directement en Haïti. Et puis, tout, pas oublier pour nous jouer bingo avec ti moun yo, wap jen tout bagay yo sur site nous. Et puis, samedi, c'est dernier jour. Bon, on a jusqu'à 30 mois de mai pour finir remplir 4 bingo pour ce que je prime dans rafla qu'on a gagné. Okay, thank you everybody so much for participating. And if there's nothing else, that will be the end, and then we'll see you via email.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Somebody else wants to
Régine.
add. Say wave.
Thank
Give a wave.
you. Bye everyone.
Bye-bye,
Thank you.
Bonne nuit
everyone.
tout le monde.
Bye.
Bonne nuit.
Bonne
Merci.
nuit.
Bye bye.
Merci
Bye.
tout le
Bonne nuit,
monde.
bonne nuit.
Bonne nuit.
Bonne nuit.
Bonne nuit.